Hey, what's up everyone? My name's Frankie W and welcome back to my life. For today's video, I wanted to talk about my 2025 reading goals. So I did the beginning of the year book tag and I mentioned in that video that I will do a video specifically talking about my reading goals for 2025, and that's what this is. So I have already started this spread. So on this side is my physical TBR. I haven't finished filling in all the books yet, and then on this side I have my 2025 reading goals. My first three goals are actually the goals I also want to set on the story graph, so those are my accountability goals that I want to keep track of. I want to read 25 books in 2025. I want to listen to 72 hours of audiobooks, and I want to read 5,000 pages physically of books. And so those are the stats that I'll be also tracking on the story graph. For those who maybe use Goodread over the story graph and maybe want to know why I prefer the story graph, one thing is that I love that it's person owned, so like they take into account other people's opinions on how the app's interface should work and like what would make the app easier for more people. And also, I know Goodreads has this notification that tells people when they're 10 books behind, 5 books behind, or whatever. The story graph also has this, but you can turn it off. So I always turn it off. I never have it on, and I kind of just go through the year reading at my own pace. So that's what I really love about the story graph. My next goal is to read 5 nonfiction books. So in 2024, my goal was to read 5 memoirs, and I ended up not hitting the 5 memoir goal, but if I also included the nonfictions I read, I would have surpassed that goal. So I want to, I guess, make that goal broader and say 5 nonfictions, and they can be memoirs or they can be historical books because, for example, I read The Boys in the Boat and Hidden Figures, and those aren't technically memoirs, but they are historical and nonfiction and about real people. So stuff like that. And then the next one I wrote is to read 10 books that I own myself. I have a really big physical TBR. I have to check my Libib and tell you what it is. I did actually go shopping today and buy 3 more books. But it's really, maybe if I have like 200 books, 100 of them are read and 100 of them are not read. And that's kind of where I've always been. So I want to get better at reading the books I own that I've owned for a long time. I just buy books I think are pretty or buy books that I think sound interesting, and then I read those first. So I want to really but I really want to like lower the number of books read that I own. And also the reason I only said 10 out of the 25 is because a lot of the times I listen to audiobooks for books I don't own unless I'm listening to the memoir of someone. My next reading goal is to read 3 graphic novels. I've pretty much crossed out all the graphic novels that I own right now. So the Forest Hill Bootleg Society, all of my Heartstopper, Wash Day Diaries. I think the only graphic novel in my apartment that I own that I haven't read yet is Lore Olympus, and because I've read the webtoon, I've actually read most of the books that were already published, so I just want to own them and read them physically so I can mark them off. But yeah, Lore Olympus, and then whatever 2 other graphic novels that I find in the world will be, you know? And then my next goal is to read 4 manga. I read a lot of manga this year and I want to continue doing that. Big part of that is reading My Hero Academia because that is the series that I am just currently reading and in love with, but I would love to also read Monster. It's that manga I have up there. I have Haikyuu and just other manga because there's a lot of anime and a lot of Japanese shows that I like. The next thing I want to do is do a 24-hour reading vlog. So I did one in 2023 in December, and because I was also technically working and I was just really exhausted and I was on East Coast time, but I was still West Coast jet lagged. Like there was a lot of things happening. So that video is not my best attempt at reading for 24 hours, and also I will always be someone who stops the clock to sleep and restarts in the morning. So I want to do that vlog again, and I already have it kind of planned out, so hopefully it goes a lot better this time around. Next, I want to read a new genre. So I mentioned this in my beginning of the year book tag, but I was interested in reading literary fiction, and I wanted to read Sally Rooney's Intermezzo. Another thing I want to say is, like, I've read Icebreaker, right? And, like, I guess that's considered romance, but, like, I don't read romance. I think books just have romance themes involved. So I want to really read romance books and, like, try that genre, I guess is the way to say it, because I've never, like, relationships have always kind of been a addition, like a nice to have, but not like the main point of the books I read. So I think it would be really interesting to see what just a full-on romance book, because I did love The Exception to the Rule, and that was a really short, like, novella, so maybe I'll be kicking my feet and everything, like, you know, maybe I'll enjoy romance. I want to have a reading streak, so a little spoiler into a video coming soon. I want to try 75 soft this year. I'm not sure if that's gonna happen, but in my 75 soft, I have a goal of reading 10 pages of my books or listening to at least 30 minutes of a book every day. And so with that goal in mind, I was thinking of having a reading streak, like, of course, 75 days of a streak, but I think maybe even a 100-day streak for reading would be really cool and just really inspiring. Who knows? I don't know. I don't want to put too much pressure on myself for having a streak, but I do think reading consecutively is really important too. My next one is have reading days. I want to have days where I read and just, like, dedicate time to reading, kind of like a 24-hour reading, kind of like a 24-hour reading challenge or readathon, but it's also just days where I know I'm gonna take it easy and just read, because I kind of already know days where maybe I want to go to the movies and I plan my day around going to the movies, so I want to do that but for reading. And my last goal, this one is probably the most specific goal that I have for this year, and that is to finish the Pretty Little Liars book series. That is something that's been on my, like, the Pretty Little Liars series has been a book series that I feel like I've been reading for a really long time now. It's really only been like 2-3 years at this point, but I read the first 4 books in 2023. I read 2 books in 2024. I want to read the next 2 books. I don't want to call it a book, but, like, the half book of Allie's Pretty Little Liars, and then the next few books that come after that. I want to finish the series and I want to make a video about it, and I haven't had the chance to do that yet. So these are specifically my 2025 reading goals. I definitely want to say that there's probably more reading goals that will pop up. And a non-reading goal, but just a bookish goal, is to be consistent with my reading journal. So this is the Amanda Rachel 160 pages dotted notebook. It's literally just in black versus the one last year I had, which was brown. I will say I was pretty consistent journaling, but I got a bit uninspired when it came to writing at times. Like, all this writing for Constance Wu and all this writing for My Hero Academia, which is, like, not the best example because I know the plot of the manga I'm reading, but it's like the same thing could be said for Forest Hills Bootleg Society and The Wild Robot. Just, like, I want to be consistent in writing down my opinions on books. I want to be consistent in my spreads. Like, I want to do more fun spreads like this. I never really did a lot with this 10 before the end. This November spread is really ugly. I never finished it. The December spread, I didn't even know what I was doing. I just kind of made squiggles. And the thing is, it felt like I had to fill it out versus, like, doing it because I want to and it being fun and creative and cool. Like, this is one of my favorite spreads that I made this year. And also, like, I've put so much pressure on myself not only to do the spreads, but to finish them fast, that some of them are so ugly. And I don't want to make ugly spreads in 2025, which may be a tall order, but I refuse to make ugly spreads. So we'll see what happens. And then one more thing before we finish this video, because I know this video is a little short, I wanted to talk about 3 books that I actually bought today. I love doing mini hauls like this, so I just thought I'd add it to the 2025 reading goals because it is January 1st. Okay, so the first book that I got, oh, there's a little residue left. Perfect. The first book that I got in 2025 is Sally Rooney's Intermezzo. So we were kind of just talking about how everyone and their mother was fangirling over this book. So I really want to read it, especially I think this is a good dive into literary fiction. It would be my first. I know Miss Sally Rooney is a very well-loved author and well-read author, but I thought I'd dip my toes in with this one. I also just love the color yellow. Next is Lana Ferguson's Under Lock and Key. So the description just at the very top is basically Kiana Key McKay is used to secrets. She was raised by a single father who never divulged his past, and it only after his death that she finds herself thrust into a world he always refused to speak of. With just a childhood bedtime story about a monster that saved her father's life and the name of her estranged grandparents to go off of, Key has no idea what she'll find in Scotland, but repeating her father's mistakes and being rescued by a gorgeous, angry Scotsman who thinks she's an idiot is absolutely the last thing she expects, right? And at that, you're like, oh, it's just like anything. And then the top says, a woman discovers that not all monsters are her enemy. The opposite, in fact, in this new paranormal romance by Lana Ferguson. So he's wearing a kilt, he's dripping water, so she falls in love with the Loch Ness Monster, basically. That's my prediction. Guys, that's hilarious. That's so funny. I cannot wait to read this book. I cannot wait to read this book. I literally just saw the cover and I read the little blurb and I started giggling. Like, I'm so excited. And of course, the side is already decorated like a kilt. I love this. Okay. And the last book I picked up, it's actually another monster book, a monster romance book. It is Fang Fiction by Kate Staben London, and she's out for adventure and he's out for blood. And the world of your favorite fantasy novels is real, and you're invited to visit. The only catch, it's filled with thirsty vampires. That's like the tagline. And I read the blurb and I just thought it was so funny. So yes, these two, a vampire trying, in love with a vampire, in love with the Loch Ness Monster, and then Intermezzo. So as you can see, I actually don't have a preferred genre or reading style. I'll just look at book covers and descriptions and say that is the book for me. And I think that's something that I want to continue to do in 2025 as well. It's not a goal that I wrote down, but I just want to read to read. I want to read for fun. I don't want to just pick books because everyone on Book Talk or BookTube and Bookstagram are talking about it. I also am not part of any of those, so like technically I never see what people are reading, so we're all good. If someone has been talking about this, I'd love, besides Intermezzo, which truthfully I feel like every person I was subscribed to were talking about Intermezzo, but I've never heard anyone talk about these other two. So, okay guys, so that's about it. We have my baby haul as well as my reading goals for 2025. Thanks so much for watching. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and tell me some of the goals that you have for 2025. Do not give me spoilers for these books. Please let me go in blind. I don't want to know anything except for the very little I know from the back. Nothing else. Okay. Bye.